da pawb, croeso cynnes I chi I gyd ar ran grŵp cenedlaethol, nid rhan fath o grŵp cenedlaethol Cymreig Cymdeithas yn yr iaith Welsh Llundain. Dyn ni'n falch iawn bod Dr Carol Bell sydd yma fel ein daleithydd ni heddi, sydd yma oherwydd I swydd fel cadeirydd Heneb, sef ymddiriedolaeth archeolegol Cymru, ydy? Right, okay, da iawn, dwi'n cael enw yn gywir nawr. Nawr, is I wedi cael gyrfa ddisglair yn barod i'w Carol, yn fi'n bancio yn y brif ddinas, ni'n deall, ac ar gyfer sawl sefydliad treftadaethol hefyd yn gynnwys fel trysorydd y Gymdeithas yn Llundain. Dydy, wrth gwrs, wrth ein bod hi'n ymuno â ni heddi I siarad â ni. So, a very warm welcome to everybody here. Lovely to see such a large audience for such a significant but also such a very enjoyable meeting such as this, organised by the Welsh Fellows of the Society of Antiquaries of London. If you like this, there are all sorts of ways, as we'll say at the end, you can get onto the programme and join with us more and more. Around 10 months, I think it is, since the foundation of Heneb, the new unitary archaeological trust for Wales, it's a very real pleasure as well as a very important matter for us to be able to hear the Chair's review of experiences, hopes for the future, fears for the future, who knows, for this significant organisation. So without more ado, the title is up there, the lecturer is in front of us, I'll hand over to Carol. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, John, am eich cyflwyniad caredig dros ben. Mae'n wir bleser bod gyda chi siarad am Genedigaeth Heneb a'r misoedd cyntaf yn ei bywyd heddi. Ac fel I ni'n dweud o ble fi'n dod o yn Felindre, I dwlu pip ar beth allwn erfyn yn y dyfodol. So thank you so much for your generous introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here today to share the story of Heneb so far and to reflect on what lies ahead. I'll continue in English today so that everybody can hear the same story at the same time. But the Welsh language is central to Heneb and we use it at work and in our interactions externally as much as possible. I was particularly delighted to receive this invitation from the Welsh Fellows of the Society of Antiquaries, as I am both a fellow and, as John was saying, the treasurer of the Society. And I'm also delighted that Natasha McEnroe, the General Secretary of our Society, who took up her post last year, Natasha, wave at everybody, is here with us. And I hope you've had a chance to talk to her and meet her. Now, I have to apologise, I've got two gadgets going here because my laptop wouldn't talk to the AV system. So if I hit the wrong button periodically, please forgive me. So, as Dylan Thomas would say, to begin at the beginning, Heneb is an independent charity dedicated to conservation, the conservation, investigation, recording and promotion of the historic environment in Wales. On the 1st of April last year, the four Welsh Archaeological Trusts merged to form Heneb, whose official name, as we've heard, is the Trust for Welsh Archaeology. Mirroring the activity spheres of the four former trusts, which also were charities, Heneb's four regions are Clwyd Powys, Dyfed, Glamorgan Gwent and Gwynedd. The regional expertise and service delivery, which was the hallmark of the four trusts, has therefore continued seamlessly under the auspices of Heneb. Regional offices remain in use and the expert colleagues delivering our services have not changed. Today we number just under 80 staff spread across Wales. Indeed, we are one of the national organisations in Wales that cannot be accused of being Cardiff-centric, as our offices are in Bangor, Welshpool, Llandeilo, Baglan and Newport. So, this is what we do. We manage the regional historic environment records, about 25,000 Welsh archaeological and historical sites recorded therein. We provide archaeological planning services and also work with developers of infrastructure and other facilities, what is known as sometimes commercial archaeology, and we provide services in that regard, as well as offering heritage management advice and, possibly most important of all, engaging communities and volunteers in everything we do. This rather busy graphic shows Heneb's activity scope in non-financial figures, covering statistics on engaging communities and volunteers in our work, managing the historic environment records, and providing archaeological planning services. Around 22 people per day are taking part in our outreach activities, and around 29 people per day are taking part in facilitated learning programmes. 664 inquiries were made by members of the public into the historic environment record last year. That's about 3 inquiries per working day. And we also assess around 85 planning applications per day. Now, providing archaeological services to developers is a growing part of our activities. As I say, this is sometimes called commercial archaeology. But it would not be too strong to say that the sheer quantity and indeed quality of developer-led excavation in the UK has transformed our understanding of the past in recent years. As many of this audience will know, since 1990, archaeology has been an integral part within planning processes, and developers have funded archaeological investigations in order to mitigate the impact of their work on the historic environment. Perhaps people don't realise that developer-led archaeology by now employs roughly 3/4 of the archaeologists in the UK, doing absolutely brilliant work. And it provides an income of about 200 million to the archaeological profession annually across the UK, and is a very cost-effective way of furthering archaeological research at a high standard. Developer-led archaeology in Wales has thus become a crucial tool for discovering and preserving our rich archaeological heritage, while balancing the need for modern development. The 4 Welsh archaeological trusts have been operating for nearly 50 years, providing a comprehensive and well-established network of archaeological expertise across the country. Heneb now, as I've said, continues this work, alongside maintaining the historic environment records and providing other advice. This system is unique to Wales and has no direct equivalent in other parts of the UK. This distinctive approach, which has a strong public service ethos in our view, allows the Welsh way to better deliver national programmes and, importantly, community engagement. But growing developer-led income is also an opportunity for Heneb to fund more in terms of proactive research and to grow even further our engagement with communities. Those of you who know me, like Professor Whitley, will not be shocked to see some graphs, which in my view trump tables any day of the week when you're trying to convey a trend. The 4 trusts had a wide range of income sources. Cadw, for example, from central government being the most important, local government, developer-led contracts, and work funded through grants as well as partnership projects. Heneb is therefore diversified in terms of its income, both geographically and by source. As you can see from this graph, the recent growth in income of the 4 trusts has been mainly in the other category, being the commercial sector. Although the grant-aided funding from Cadw, for which we are extremely grateful, remains the most important single part of our overall revenue. And in 2024, the funding from Cadw represented 44% of the total. Now here I'm showing the same revenue data split by region. So working our way up the chart, Clwyd Powys is the darkest band at the bottom, then Glamorgan, Gwent, Dyfed and Gwynedd at the top. As you can see, the individual geographical contributions vary from year to year, which is broadly reflective of how much developer-led work is taking place in the respective regions. So having given you a picture of our revenue and where it comes from, I'd now like to turn to creating the new National Heritage Organisation that is Heneb, and why and how we did this. The decision to merge the 4 historic trusts had already been taken by the trustees of those 4 charities before they set out to find a new chair early in 2024, which is when I became involved. I would like to pay tribute to those trustees for their vision and downright hard work, and many of them are here with us today. Indeed, in the run-up to the merger, which happened on the 1st of April 2024, we had to be very hands-on with weekly board meetings. So it was a lot more beyond what trustees expect to do in archaeological charities. At times, the list of regulatory and compliance tasks that had to be accomplished looked extremely daunting, but we kept our eye on the prize, guided by legal and accounting advice, and we successfully merged on the 1st of April last year. Forming a board with diverse skills and moving quickly to establish the executive leadership team within an organisational structure capable of delivering a new 5-year strategic plan were critical initial tasks, and I'll speak about how we went about this and the steps we have taken to create a unified identity as fast as possible. The rationale for creating Heneb was ambitious: increasing competitiveness to strengthen Heneb's position when bidding for developer-funded contracts by using our resources more efficiently across Wales. The second was to facilitate sharing best practice across our regions more effectively and to deploy learnings from one region to another to stay at the cutting edge of archaeology. Thirdly, again a scale point, to be more attractive and a more equal partner with other archaeological units when large field teams are required. Just to contextualise the point about scale, I've here compared Heneb, which is the whole of Wales if you like, with Museum of London Archaeology, of which I was a board member before I became chair of Heneb, and Wessex Archaeology. These companies, which like Heneb are charities, have seen high levels of revenue over the past 4 years, driven by HS2, major road building and infrastructure projects, and in Mola's case, of course, major building works in the City of London. In broad terms, depending on which year you look at, Heneb is about a sixth the size of these English charities in terms of revenue. In the 2024 accounts, Mola records 425 staff and Wessex 349. Heneb's total in our 2024 accounts was 88 in comparison, by adding the number of staff across the 4 trusts. None of these 3 organisations is looking to make profits for shareholders. Rather, they seek to spend the money, the income they generate, on growing their charitable impact. So the more income they generate, the more funds are available for research projects and community outreach. 2024 for Heneb brought additional costs related to the merger, which will result in net revenues in the future. So therefore, if we look at 2023 across the 3 charities as a fairer basis for comparison, both Wessex and Mola made losses, while the 4 Welsh Archaeological trusts were profitable. Strong financial control is essential, and breaking even in operational terms is important for financial sustainability, as is maintaining a good level of financial reserves. Proportionately, Heneb has more reserves than the two English charities, which is one of the reasons that former trustees of the 4 historic trusts could contemplate investing in the merger. But back to the rationale. Heneb now has the national scale to represent archaeology in Wales and to become a significant voice on heritage in Wales, to have a seat at that table. It was also important for the board to maintain the regional expertise and the decentralised service delivery that was a hallmark of the 4 individual trusts, and we've been able to keep that ethos. My own work in archaeology has recently focused on multidisciplinary regional synthesis of archaeological and textual data, which has received a huge boost from machine learning and artificial intelligence methodologies developed in other sectors. But at a more immediate and practical level, Heneb's ability to invest in digital technology generally will be helped greatly by being a larger scale operation and ensuring that digital expertise is shared across the whole of Wales rather than being resident in 1 or 2 of the trusts. Now, this chart, and I promise you this is the final one, compares the revenue generated per member of staff in Heneb compared with Wessex and Molar. The 2024 pro forma figures for Heneb are a simple aggregation, of course, of those of the 4 historic trusts, with 4 separate chief executives and administrative functions supporting the archaeologists. Clearly, there is potential to grow Heneb's revenue per staff member with senior leadership, finance, HR, and business development functions shared across a larger business. The last area of obvious benefit is through sharing best practice, which I've mentioned briefly already. It has been very interesting to see that each one of the 4 trusts has had best practice in different types to share across Wales. And I hope to illustrate this a bit later in the lecture. But for now, I'd like to show you a picture of the staff and board group that gathered for the first ever Heneb offsite in Aberystwyth in October. You'd never guess that I was going to a Cymru football match next. Our chief executive, Richard, where are you, Richard? There's Richard over there. And our trustee, Hywel John, a much better camouflage, although they were also going to where I was going. So turning briefly to the mechanics of the merger and what we have done to position Heneb for success organisationally, I've been involved personally, as has Hywel John, in merging energy companies for most of my working life. But bringing this one across the finishing line was no less complex. I can assure you of that. But we did manage it, thanks, as I've said, to the hard work of the board and the executive. So first, the shadow board, made up of board members from the 4 trusts, produced a prospectus proposing a merger in December 2022. The prospectus argued that 4 independent regional trusts would not provide the most unified and independent voice for archaeology in Wales at a national level. It therefore proposed that establishing a pan-Wales body would not only provide that consistent voice, but would also enable the regional excellence to be developed further to build a resilient future. 2 trustees from each trust worked during 2023 and early 2024 on the shadow board, which was chaired by Sian Rees, who is in the front. And there'll be more news about Sian later on in the presentation, I'm sure. So following legal advice, Heneb was created by collapsing 3 of the existing trusts into the remaining one. The 4th receiving trust was Dyfed, because its articles of association were the most easily adapted to the other 3 trusts. CPAT, GAT and GGAT were then merged into Dyfed. And at the time, Dyfed happened to be the largest in terms of turnover and net profit. But as I've said before, that is largely dependent on what work was going on across the group. Throughout, as I say, we followed detailed legal advice to ensure that charity and employment law issues were addressed appropriately. And we also worked closely with executive colleagues and the auditors to ensure financial reporting of the transfer of funds to Heneb was completed at the end of the 2024 financial year. We engaged a search firm to identify first me, the external chair, and one further independent director, which is when I came into the picture, obviously in February last year. And Stefan Williams also joined at that point, and Stefan is a leading financial PR practitioner with roots in Llandeilo, and his help has been invaluable to us as we've sought to communicate our journey forward. So here is the picture of the Heneb board at its inaugural meeting in Welshpool. Stefan Williams was not able to attend in person, unfortunately, so Stefan is not in the picture, but the rest of us are there. And I think a large number of my colleagues are in the room today, but the others are here in spirit, I can assure you, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the recording. One of the most important features about Heneb's board is that it has diverse skills beyond archaeology, heritage management, and experience of charity governance. I'll not read the slide, but as I've already mentioned, we have a real focus on strong financial control. We have the luxury of not one, but two chartered accountants on the board. Communication and advocacy is another feature, and beyond what the rest of the board can do, we have a seasoned professional to advise us in Stefan, as I've already said. The Welsh language I've mentioned. 3 of us were brought up in Welsh-speaking homes, and 3 others have learned to a level of fluency or extremely high proficiency. I could go on. 2 knowledgeable about environmental sustainability, 3 competent on pensions, but we're all committed to diversity and inclusion, safeguarding and providing Heneb with the best governance oversight possible. Turning to the staff structure, Richard Nichols, our Chief Executive, reports to the Board of Trustees, and he's supported by a Head of Finance and Business Services, who is currently Judith Holland. Judith is retiring shortly after a distinguished career at Dyfodol Archaeology prior to Heneb, and we'd like to thank Judith very much indeed for her service. Denise Jones will begin in post as our new Head of Finance, and she comes to us, and she'll be based in Welshpool, having been Head of Finance for Shropshire Towns and Rural Housing and Tygobaeth. It's fair to say that the financial part of the merger was overseen and brought to fruition by Judith Holland, and I've already paid tribute to her, but I can't overstate how important it was that we could start with a clean bill of health on the financial side at the beginning of this financial year. Richard also has strategic leads, which are in the column on the right-hand side of the chart. In these areas, these are spread again around Wales, and what we have is, sorry, let me start that again to be absolutely clear. We've got a head of region or joint heads of region in every one of our regional offices, and Richard has also put in place strategic leads who are in the column on the right-hand side there, responsible for different areas, with Zoe Arthurs and Jenna Smith responsible for engagement, Jenny Emmett responsible for planning, Claudine Gerard responsible for heritage management, and Callie Rouse responsible for historic environment records. Our head of archaeology, based in Gwynedd, is John Roberts, and he oversees our field service teams and is Heneb's strategic lead with the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists, CIFA. Heneb, of course, is a CIFA registered organisation. And here we have the senior team at the Aberystwyth offsite. As you can see, the gender balance in this case is in favour of women, which slightly offsets the small male tilt on the board. I've mentioned the importance of in-person and cross-regional meetings already to build relationships.
Sorry, Carol, I'm not certain your slides are moving on up here.
This one is not moving on. No, it isn't. It stopped moving on. Does anybody have any technical? It went to sleep, did it? Who knows? Who knows? It's got the mouse has a mind of its own. Right, so, sorry, there they are, a slightly female-dominated senior team there, balancing out the board, as I said. So, getting together was very, very important, having a shared purpose. But another thing we had to do to cement the merger was to produce a new logo so that we could rebrand effectively. The design we selected is based on a square bronze plate found as long ago as 1872, apparently, as part of a large hoard of metalwork in Flintshire. The plaque is thought to date to the early part of the 1st century BC. So we adopted that logo, and it's one that can be easily quartered to represent the 4 regions of Heneb. Now, rebranding the back catalogue of lectures and seminars is underway, but the major piece of work, which was launched earlier this week, was to produce a new website, which we're very excited about, and we'll give details of that towards the end. So Richard's first few months in post was spent on developing and agreeing a 5-year strategy. The important point here was to have agreement across the organisation with the views of colleagues across Wales Incorporated, not just a strategy dictated by the board and the chief executive. You can see the priorities we coalesced around on this slide. Now, generating revenue for reinvestment is something that I've already mentioned, but reinvestment in our public services, particularly by developing new skills to expand our abilities in heritage management delivery throughout Wales. Developing financial resilience by creating an organisation which prospers, thereby being able to meet current and future financial challenges. Creating a strong voice for Welsh archaeology at a national level outside government. Being able to compete effectively and increase our market share in the developer-led commercial archaeology market. Developing staff capacity, skills and expertise to meet future heritage management requirements. Advocating for archaeology and the historic environment in Wales, investing in technology to enhance effective delivery of services, designing and developing new specialities and income streams to diversify our offer, and developing with partners an integrated and accessible historic environment record. And last but not least, developing closer links with communities and with organisations such as businesses, trusts, landowners, universities, schools, museums and societies. We have links already, but we are working on building the financial capacity and resilience to do more with all of you. Our first major grant award as Heneb of just under £250,000 has come from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and this will enable us to invest in business development to secure new customers and expand partnerships and outreach. We're extremely grateful to the fund for this investment, which will make a big difference to our presence and delivery in communities, but also in creating financial resilience through investing in developing a broader range of commercial customers. This is particularly important as the development of clean energy infrastructure gathers pace under Westminster Government and Welsh Government's decarbonisation plans. As you see here, we have a Wales First strategy building on our strengths, but archaeology doesn't stop at the border, and there will doubtless be opportunities to work in adjacent parts of England. Well, finally, we can now turn to why you've really come here, which is to learn about some fascinating examples from different archaeological periods and parts of Wales that highlight Heneb's current work, and also its deployment of state-of-the-art technological methods and tools. John Roberts, our head of archaeology based in Bangor, and Zoe Arthurs, our engagement lead based in Welshpool, have helped to compile a fascinating tour for us. As I go along, I'll note the partnerships under which this work has been carried out, and you will also see how our work involves local communities at every opportunity. The area that is missing in this snapshot of current work is an example of an excavation within the South Wales industrial heartland, where so many global breakthroughs were made in the 18th and 19th centuries. But within the Glamorgan Gwent team, we have a great deal of experience of archaeology in industrial contexts. And if we were to look back across the last decade or so, we would find excavations in Merthyr with its iron-making heritage, in collaboration with Cardiff University, and the Morfa Copper Works with Swansea University. The project the team would like me to speak about first is our Landscape of Neolithic Axes project. So I'm starting with the oldest project from the Stone Age. This multi-year project has investigated the sources of the stones used for Group 7 stone axe manufacture above Llanfairfechan and Penmaen Mawr at the north end of the Carneddau mountain range. The work involved small excavations with strong participation and engagement by the public. The project, which runs until the end of this year, is in collaboration with the Carneddau Landscape Partnership Scheme, which is funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Together, the stone resources above Penmaen Mawr and Llanfairfechan form an extensive landscape related to Neolithic axe production of national importance. Axes produced from stone in this area have been found across much of southern Britain, but until now, this phenomenon has not received much archaeological study. So this slide shows on the left a view of Dinas, the distinctive hill above Llanfairfechan, Conwy, which is a microdiorite outcrop used for the production of Neolithic stone axes. This is one of several locations in the area where suitable stone outcrops for axe manufacture exist. All these known stone sources were used for axe making by the Neolithic people who lived in this landscape. And one settlement site is also being investigated by the project. On the right is an aerial view of volunteers digging a trench to investigate axe making in the screes at the foot of Dinas. And here we have volunteers digging test pits and then digging down layer by layer until the natural glacial deposits were reached. And on the third picture on the right, axe debris is being bagged up, of course, layer by layer from each test pit. The excavations found ample evidence of stone axe manufacture. The top left and middle show that most of the material found were flakes from shaping roughouts, which is evidence of the first stage in the production of a stone axe. And the top right picture is such a roughout, which, as you can see, is not small. Moving west along the north coast now to Dinas Dinlle, which is a hill fort in a dramatic setting on the west-facing coastal edge, 8 kilometres south of Caernarfon. It's located on a dominant hill of glacial drift, which rises just over 30 metres above the surrounding coastal plain. The site is a scheduled monument of national significance and a site of special scientific interest because of the importance of the glacial sediments. It's owned by the National Trust. The hill fort is being lost through active erosion on the west side. If current rates of erosion continue, the entire fort could be lost within the next 233 to 583 years, according to our calculations. So some rather precise numbers there, but quite a big range. They're leaving themselves a bit of slack. A project investigating the site was initiated by the Cherish project in 2019, whose partners are shown on the right, with the archaeological work undertaken by Heneb. This comprised scientific investigation involving gradiometer readings, ground-penetrating radar, and topographic studies that revealed a dense pattern of roundhouses inside the fort. Using these results, Heneb then carried out targeted excavation, including community members in the team, and revealed 2 substantially built roundhouses. This was followed by subsequent seasons of community excavation funded by Cadw, with additional funding from the National Trust and Llyn AONB. Trench 1 investigated a substantial Iron Age Romano-British roundhouse. Trench 2 investigated part of a second roundhouse, a substantial bank and terrace that included a large area of burning and an extensive metal surface. Part of a 2nd century AD pottery vessel and a 4th century bead were recovered during excavations, suggesting a long period of occupation. Following the trial trenching in 2019, Cherish commissioned Sumo Geophysics to carry out a ground-penetrating radar survey of the hill fort interior. And this technique produced a 3D model of subsurface features, and from this, time slices can be extracted from the model, showing the sequence of results at different depths below the ground surface. So here is a vertical aerial photograph of the site during the 2021 excavations. And here are some of the objects recovered from the dig, including the bead and coin I mentioned earlier. The copper alloy coin, by the way, is a numus of Diocletian, dating to the period 294 to 305 AD. It's always great when you find coins, isn't it? One of the techniques used to record the excavations, in addition to drawn and photographic site records, is photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is widely used in archaeology and is a powerful tool for documenting, analysing and preserving archaeological sites and artefacts. It allows archaeologists to generate detailed 3D models and accurate measurements without physically disturbing the subject. And this was used in the Trench 1 area. As a result of using photogrammetry, an orthographic photo from the 3D model so constructed was converted easily into a scaled plan. And on the left, we have that orthographic photograph and from the 3D model, and on the right, the plan that was produced from it. The Area 1 roundhouse is now consolidated and accessible with educational information installed. We expect radiocarbon dating results later this year to complete the post-excavation picture. Staying in Gwynedd, before it closed for redevelopment, the Amgueddfa Lechi, the National Slate Museum in Llanberis, asked Heneb to do an extensive photographic and 3D modelling survey of the existing displays. More than 300 images taken of the museum interior and exterior were commissioned to provide an extensive record of the historic layout and the use of the museum. And the museum also required 3D models of specific rooms to be built in order to display these subsequently after the rooms were dismantled. And these were completed using photogrammetry, as I've mentioned in the previous work. And here are some examples. I hope they're not too dark. They are a little bit dark, I know. But I know these rooms very well from when I was acting president and vice president of Amgueddfa Cymru. And it's fascinating to me that every tool, every nail, is there in its place, and future generations will be able to enjoy these as I did. And here are some more examples of what we did. It's an amazing technique, and it's great that it's being deployed here in Wales to record things that are being redeveloped. Moving south now to Pembrokeshire, following a chance treasure discovery in 2018 by a metal detectorist, preliminary excavations uncovered a chariot burial, the first of its kind, at the centre of a circular monument located near the entrance to a hitherto unknown Iron Age promontory fort. Through a partnership project, which was grant-funded via the National Heritage Lottery Fund Wales, Cadw and Amgueddfa Cymru, the excavation of the burial monument and conservation lifting of the chariot fittings was completed in 2019. Sample excavation of the fort dishes and further survey enriched understanding of its landscape context. And indeed, a film was made by young people through a partnership with Pembrokeshire College. Amgueddfa Cymru has acquired the finds made in this dig for Wales's National Collection. The project is now being led by Mel Giles of the University of Manchester in partnership with Amgueddfa Cymru and Heneb. And Heneb's work will now focus on post-excavation analysis, producing reports for a project monograph, attending working group stakeholder meetings, and contributing to workshops and conferences. And I was lucky enough to see these wonderful horse fittings from the burial in the conservation lab of Amgueddfa Cymru just before Christmas. And I can vouch for these colours, if anything, as being brighter in real life than they're showing up here. What an important find. And just to complete comments on this find, here we have in situ a sword before it was excavated on the left-hand side, and two chariot wheels on the right-hand side. Indeed, a very important find. So let's go back to the north now. This time, the northeast to Clwyd Powys as heartland. Watts Dyke is a linear monument consisting of a bank and ditch which ran along the western edge of the Midlands. There was probably a defensive earthwork for the Mercian frontier. But definitive dating of this landscape feature had not been established. Over the last decade, Heneb has taken samples for scientific dating from different interventions along the Watts Dyke, as well as two interventions through Offers Dyke as well, as part of community projects and rescue and commercial work. Most of these investigations were planned to test whether similar results to those achieved in 2006 in the Gobowen Watts Dyke excavation could be obtained, and samples for both radiocarbon dating and optically stimulated luminescence (OSL) dating were recovered. The results have been surprisingly variable, with some primary bank and ditch deposits of late prehistoric Roman date and earlier Bronze Age ground surfaces as well, and features identified beneath the bank, and others largely provide dates during the 6th to 10th centuries AD. A series of optically stimulated luminescence dates provided scientific dating for the infill sequence and buried soil, showing construction and use occurred in the early 9th century. A possible episode of slighting occurring in the mid-9th century, and a deliberate major episode of infill associated with medieval ploughing in the 14th century. Heneb postulates that these dates can be related to historical events and suggested a construction date for Watts Dyke during either the reigns of the kings of Mercia, Cenwulf or his successor Chairwulf, and that would date it at 796 AD to 823, or for that of Wiglaf during the 830s. Everybody probably knows Pont Cysylltu, which is the most magnificent aqueduct crossing the Dee Valley. And Heneb is providing archaeological support to the Canal River Trust's multi-year project of improvements and maintenance at the aqueduct, which is, of course, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The once-in-a-decade decision to drain the aqueduct canal provided Trust archaeologist Matt Thomas with the opportunity to do a photogrammetrical survey of the structure's interior. The technique required Matt to spend 3 days on the aqueduct in the trough. I wouldn't fancy that personally. I have no head for heights. Shooting over 4,000 images. The resultant model captures details down to the level of individual bolts and even spiders' webs beneath the suspended towpath. And when the board was up in Welshpool for its first meeting, we were treated to a detailed show of this early data. So the model and a range of orthographic plans, images showing the aqueduct from various angles, rather like a photographic version of an architect's plan, will be used by CRT's engineers to complete their condition assessment of the structure without further delays to boating traffic across the aqueduct. The only challenge remains of how best to view the final images. One orthographic image showing the entire length of the underside of the towpath is, as Matt informs me, 650,000 pixels in length. And that would fill more than 200 pages of A4 paper laid end to end if it were printed out. But thank God we're not doing that. I mean, that would be bad for the environment. But here you see Matt in action, and the Pont Cysylltu Model 1, as it's called, showing a still shot of the 3D model as if the viewer is standing in the trough. And this is the, I don't know how clear it is, John and I were struggling to know what to show here, given the choice. But this is an example of what we delivered to the Canal River Trust to inform their condition assessment. It shows views above, beside and beneath the path, covering just one of the 18 spans of the aqueduct. So the area in red at the bottom there is shown in close-up in the next picture. Right. The last archaeological project I'll speak about is the work done recently at Basingstoke Abbey in Flintshire. This has been one of Heneb's key projects over the last few years, and it's an exemplar of the benefits of collaborative working again. Through negotiation with Greenfield Valley Park and consultation with Cadw, we were able to design a project to excavate the Abbey surroundings to inform new interpretation for the Valley Park with surprising results. This project also provided an opportunity for volunteers and local students to get involved with our excavation and attend a variety of archaeological skills workshops and toolbox talks. The excavations in 2023 aimed to identify the potential extent of the monastic complex. We did find some medieval activity, although most of this was from disturbed contexts associated with a demolition of the abbey in, of course, 1536. Evaluation did, however, identify, and here's a surprise, Romano-British activity surrounding the abbey dated to the late 1st century to early 2nd century AD. So we were expecting medieval, but we got Romano-British. The 2024 excavations aim to develop understanding of these new discoveries by targeting larger excavations over the areas where potential Romano-British activity was identified to the south of the abbey. Trench 1 identified the presence of at least 3 roundhouses, as well as other possible prehistoric activity, and a later defensive ditch, which was in use in the medieval period as well. One of the most prominent features was a stone-lined hearth incorporating a flat-topped pot stone. Material culture recovered from these roundhouses suggests that they were occupied from the late Iron Age to the early Romano-British period. Artifacts have included a range of Roman fine wares, as well as a late Iron Age tri-scale mount. Trench 3 also identified potential Roman domestic activity, including a gully, possibly associated with a roundhouse, with material culture again dated to the late 1st and early 2nd century AD. Others here will be experts on coins, but that coin looks like Trajan to me, although I don't think it's been published yet. And if it were from that period, he was in charge between 98 AD to 117. The findings suggest the presence of a Romano-British settlement with significant trading links with the newly arrived Romans, therefore. And it's our interpretation that the Romano-British people who lived here seem to have benefited from the presence of the Romans by trading with them, rather than being oppressed by them. The Rosset lead ingot recently found near Wrexham is probably evidence of what type of trade there might have been involved in the northeast of Wales at this point. More and more evidence is coming that the Romans came to Britain, and to Wales in particular, for metals, and especially lead. And as I said on Radio Cymru last week, the Romans had an insatiable demand for lead, for the pipes and troughs used in baths, like the one recently found in a wealthy house in Pompeii. And other evidence from Wales also suggests that the Roman lead industry was established very quickly after the Roman legions arrived in the Emperor Claudius's time. So watch this space for more on the development of this particular strand. Turning finally now to a bit more detail on how we support Welsh Government priorities. We do this in a number of ways, including specific projects. We acknowledge that the heritage and archaeology sector has work to do in improving diversity and representation, and Heneb is no exception. Mapping Our Heritage is a brand new project this year that will engage a wide range of individuals and groups from diverse communities and religious faiths to enhance their historic environment records with their own stories and special places. We developed this project in response to the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. Obtaining funding to deliver projects like this ensures not only a fairer and more inclusive Wales, but also a more inclusive historic environment sector as a whole. It allows us to forge new partnerships with organisations like Peace Mala, pictured here, who bring together groups from across the world for creative collaborations. We also hope, of course, that it will inspire a diverse next generation of archaeologists. We also see archaeology as a tool for social inclusion and commit resources to educating the public in all things to do with archaeology. Heneb has a vibrant outreach programme providing unique experiences to people across Wales. Archaeology has the unique ability to appeal to a wide range of people regardless of age, background or education, and we have a suite of opportunities available. I think it's in Alan Bennett's History Boys play that the master says to the boys, archaeology is the closest history comes to shopping. And there's something in that, I think. People like to see stuff rather than reading chronologies. From the pictures I've shown you about fieldwork, you will know by now that Heneb is proud to host volunteers on our digs. We believe that this helps well-being through being part of a team with a purpose, as well as through being out in the open air, to state the obvious. Volunteers are also an asset to us, and we really value their support in the work we do. For example, currently there are plenty of long-term opportunities for volunteers in the Glamorgan and Gwent area in the Arfordir project, which takes an innovative approach to heritage management by combining professional expertise with community participation in coastal southeast Wales. We are also looking for volunteers to work with us in-house with the historic environment records in North Wales. Additionally, we host hundreds of short-term volunteers for opportunities in excavation, as well as placements for work experience students. We produce regular newsletters, of course. Our first Heneb newsletter will be out shortly. Our staff regularly contribute to publications, such as the one on the right there, which is an article for the Journal of the Pembrokeshire Historical Society. Throughout the year, we participate in festivals, events, open days, and sensory sessions to engage the public with archaeology. The Festival of Archaeology is a highlight in our annual programme. It's a national festival with events across the UK and an opportunity for us to take to the road and share our work. There is something for everyone, and it fosters a real sense of togetherness through collaboration with the Council for British Archaeology. With links to STEM subjects in almost all archaeological processes, our school visits are a great way for schools to provide a day of fun for students while continuing to educate them in a different way. We have a great relationship with several local schools around our offices and also with the Welsh universities. We also attend careers fairs and provide sessions on a variety of archaeological subjects such as geophysical survey, finds illustration and pottery. Always with an eye on inspiring the next generation of archaeologists. We have a programme of archaeological walks and talks throughout the year. These events are always attended with well attended, with many selling out, and this really highlights the public appetite for content like this. Traditional class-based lectures are great, but Heneb's outreach team often likes to head outside and take people to the heritage. The Arfordir project in South East Wales is an excellent example of this. The coastline is a dynamic environment subject to constant change through the actions of erosion, land use and climate change, which can both reveal and conceal sites of archaeological interest, but which can also damage and even destroy them. We recruited local volunteers and brought them together to record and monitor the coastal heritage of their area. They received training and support from professional archaeologists who acted as mentors. And after learning how to identify and record sites, they were given recording forms and equipment, including GPS and access to cameras. With the information they are generating then being provided to the Arfordir coordinator for incorporation into the regional historic environment record. This information is invaluable for building up the record, especially at a time when extreme weather risks are on the rise and the long-term effects of climate change are in play. Archaeology Days are among our most popular events of the year. Most recently, Clwyd Powys region held their Archaeology Day in Wrexham University. Presentations by Heneb staff members Ian Grant and Chris Matthews on Boras Quarry and the work I've just mentioned earlier on Basingstoke Abbey were both exceptional. And you can see that it's a room full to capacity for the whole day. Our next Archaeology Day will be held by the Dyfodol region in Aberystwyth on the 7th of March, and tickets will be available soon. Our YouTube channel has over 140 videos covering projects from across the 4 historic trusts, as well as now, of course, Heneb's projects. Definitely worth watching for new additions, including an online seasonal lectures series. And outreach would not be complete these days without a presence on social media. Heneb has thousands of supporters who follow us through these platforms, which help us to extend our reach and share our knowledge and resources with a wider audience. Check out the handle at Heneb_TWA on the screen there for events, opportunities, weekly project posts and more. And now the great grand reveal of our new website. After months of hard work to consolidate and develop the information and resources from our 4 previous trust websites, the new Heneb website is now officially live as of Wednesday. It's bilingual and fully accessible. It's the gateway to all Heneb has to offer, including commercial and curatorial services, years of research project results, heaps of educational content and resources, as well as our new membership scheme. And here I'd ask you to please consider becoming a member, if you are able, and to, in any event, subscribe to our mailing list to be kept informed. Well, that's the end of my tour around what we do. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you so much for coming. I hope I've done justice to the story so far and given you a flavour for how we see the world and are investing in the future of archaeology in Wales, not just for the profession, but for everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very, very much indeed for that masses of material there. I trust you will be prepared to answer a few questions.
I'll do my best,
I'm sure there will be lots, please. So, who would like to come first? Robin, yes.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to say something.
Oh,
I'll come here so that people can
come here,
hear me.
Come behind the desk so the mic is there.
Oh, okay. Fel anwyl gyfeillion, the reason why I've come here now is I want to say something. I may not have another opportunity like this. It is a very, very important day. A very, very important lecture. I've spent, well, my life in St Fagans. Perhaps they think of me as a specimen on the wall or on the cupboard. I hope a living one. But this is what I want to say. I should know by now that Wales is one of the most rich countries in the world as far as our culture. The old and the new. I don't separate the old and the new. We in St Fagans now, it's National Museum of History. We are dealing with history, and that's what we are doing here today. And we're celebrating something fantastic. I wish I was very young to continue again, carry on, because there's so much. Because, well, it's about 25 countries I have said this. And I've been inviting people to come to Wales to see this wonderful culture, old and new, we have. We want to make it known throughout the world. The word we use in Welsh is rhannu. A mae Carol yn gwybod yn iawn am hyn. She's been doing it for many years. We don't want to put our treasure in a dark cupboard out of sight. We want to share it with all people, not just academics. And I was very pleased to see the words connect, Carol, learn, explore. Yeah? We learn. I remember when I was having in India lecturing, you learn by actually experiencing, touching. And now we have Heneb. This, in Welsh, dwi'n dweud, ardderchog iawn. Excellent. A national heritage organisation. Not just for one corner of Wales, for the whole of Wales, with a regional basis in the four corners. And I would like to take this opportunity of thanking you. I've seen some of you for years, and I know of the work that you have done, you know. I was paid to do the work in St. Fagans, but many of you are doing it voluntarily, and we want more and more people. I like walks and talks. We want to take our culture to the people, and today is a very, very important day, and I hope, I don't know if there are any cameras or newsmen here, to write about it in the papurau bro. We have 50 of them, you know, all over Wales, and they would like to have the information. Felly, diolch yn fawr iawn, iawn, Carol, I chi am y gwaith that chi wedi wneud, the work you've already done, and now you're a chair. You're there. So, so I want to thank you all, and thank you, John, for giving me these few minutes to say something from my heart about, I'm very, very happy to go home today, what I have heard. Diolch yn fawr iawn, iawn.
Diolch i chi, Ronnie.
Diolch yn fawr. I don't need to respond to that.
I don't think I need to, but I'm touched and inspired.
Yes, it does express certainly sentiments of us all, I'm sure. Questions, please? Yes, Aaron at the back.
Good afternoon, Martin. Perhaps, first of all, I say thank you for such a fine exposition of what has been achieved in setting up Heneb and the scope and extent of what you have done so far. It's been very difficult. I congratulate you and all the trustees who have made such progress, because, I mean, I feel myself that it might be easy to start with a black sheet and start at the problems of amalgamating four organizations with a long and very active history. And what I am very pleased to see, of course, is the extent to which you tackled not just the projects you're involved in, but the fact that there are national issues as well. And the one which I want to ask a question about actually is, of course, the heritage environment. When I was involved actively in archaeology, Richard Atkinson used to tease me. Heritage environment records are in that. Well, it wasn't called that then, but that's Clarking, you know, it's not archaeology. But I was able to persuade him that archaeologists who went out into the field needed those records, and the background being having the best information before they participated in the ground. And that, although I abandoned field work, I still felt I had a worthy cause to pursue. And now we have a national record which is being brought together from four different sources. I just wondered about how far you're involved with the data standards review. Because you have four different practices to emerge, and this perhaps is typical of the other problems which Heneb has faced, now that it's in existence.
Thank you. I think I'm going to ask Richard to help me with that answer, because...
I'm going to defer to my colleague.
Callie! Well, Callie's here. Yes.
I knew that was coming.
Come to the front, so that you can be heard. Yeah. Yes, I mentioned Callie, and here she is. There's the mic. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't expecting this when I walked in. So we already all work... Sorry, where are you, Alan? I can't see you. You're right at the back.
Right at the back.
There you are. we already work to the same standards, and actually we're quite a close-knit team anyway. So we've standardised our policies and our approaches to data. We already have a national, I was going to say global, wouldn't that be nice? A national guidance for data submissions. So we do all already work to the same data standards, and we're due for our quinquennial audit this coming financial year, which we will do as one HER. So we're already working as one Heneb HER quite seamlessly, I think it would be fair to say, because there were so many similarities between the 4 different HERs, because we all worked, even though we worked in our own ways, with our own specialities and different focuses on different types of sites, we still all had the same ethos and the same policies to work to, and amalgamating them all has been something we started pre-merger, which I think was very helpful for us. We sort of hit the ground running, and yeah, we're a fairly cohesive unit, I would say now. It's not something we see as a barrier, something more we see as a positive way to grow the historic environment record in Wales.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. That's great.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. My name is Martin Buckle. I chair the Brecon Beacons Park Society. We've been developing a relationship with the Archaeological Trusts over the last few years, although the background of our organisation is not particularly archaeological at all, but it's been a very fruitful relationship we've been developing, and certainly we're looking forward to working perhaps rather more strategically with Heneb in the future. One of the things that's been particularly valuable to us in that respect has actually been working with the National Park Authority as well, and their Historic Environment Partnership. And I'd like to particularly commend the authority in that respect, and that as a model perhaps for engaging the statutory local authorities as well as societies like ours and trusts like Heneb. And finally, incredibly comprehensive preservation. Would you be able to share it with all of us?
Yes, I'd be very happy to share it. I believe we've been recorded, and I believe it'll go up on the Society of Antiquaries website, which will be available to all, not behind a paywall. And I'm hoping that we'll get permission to put it on the Heneb website as well. YouTube channel, that is. But if you want,
calls the YouTube.
Yes. So, very happy to share it, and the more the merrier. And gone are the days when terms like keeper was sort of keeping stuff away from people, right? That ethos is evolving, and you will have seen how many ordinary people take part in what we do, and we only want to grow that. And the only purpose for growing our revenue is that we can plough it back in again. Plough it back into our purpose. And be more proactive and strategic about research. Today wasn't the right day to talk about that particularly, but that is something that we're thinking about.
Well, I think we've actually also, through the questions and discussion, we've had a very, very excellent illustration of the extent to which this is absolutely a collaborative and a team effort that is going on here, and something that is very much interesting me is that there's a team within the organisation. The organisation itself has to be part of a team with other organisations, and the extent of that will carry on almost infinitely, even if there will be certain directions, certain valencies that will be particularly important at certain times because of the circumstances or because of particular waves that are going through the organisation at that time. But it is, in my view, very, very much a position where, having been sort of extremely proud and knowing what a benefit it was for Wales to have that unified general system of the 4 individual trusts, it has evolved as it's had to into the single national trust now. But I do think it is I don't mean national trust, you know, trust for the nation.
Trust for the nation.
Level. I think that is something that gives a very, very great deal of confidence for the future. I think we've kept you on your feet for long enough there now anyway, but you know, if there are other things that come out, you know, we don't have to leave the room absolutely instantly, but I would like you all please to join me once again in saying thank you very, very much to Carol. And in a way, it's not just for coming and giving us this talk today, but it's for what that represents in terms of a real personal commitment to the development of the support of the heritage here in Wales. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you so much. That's okay. Next time I won't bother if there is